As we approach the final session of the day, we are more than excited to introduce our last panel titled European Innovation Strategies and Practices. This discussion will explore the differences and similarities in research, development, and innovation strategies across Europe. This is what we're having stored for you. Our distinguished panelists include Adam Rottenbacher, Deputy Director General of EIT. Please welcome him to the stage. We also have the privilege to announce that Dr. Margit Noll is here, International Director of Austria's R&D Agency. Please join us on the floor. Ivo Denemark, Head of Department at Czech Invest. Welcome to our stage. And also László Bódis, Deputy State Secretary of the Ministry of Culture and Innovation in Hungary, CEO of the Hungarian Innovation Agency. And the moderator of this panel is none other than László Korányi, who will guide us through this crucial conversation on governmental innovation policy. Is that right? Am I surprising anybody?
No. I think he will be here. He will be here in a couple of seconds, hopefully.
Isn't it such a nice chance for improvisation on your end? Or probably mine? I don't know. Whose chance is it really to...
He's coming already.
He's coming. Let's welcome him with a thunderous applause, everybody. Come on. Look at him go. Welcome. Welcome.
Sorry about that. Half of the audience is like...
We do understand. You are torn apart between the responsibilities.
Okay.
50 minutes on the clock, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah,
please enjoy the discussion.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. And sorry for this delay, but I thought that if people are outside, then probably we shouldn't talk. But this is not exactly the case, as I see. So this panel is the last plenary panel what we have, and by no chance this is talking about governmental issues, governmental policies. What can governments do? We had a number of panels where this way or the other the governments were addressed, so that, okay, like in our keynote, that the governments should try to sell, in our case, Hungary as an innovator has to find out what are actually our key selling points. In the corporate panel, we also heard that, okay, there are tasks that the governments should do, and in the startup panel also. So practically everyone is addressing governments, and actually, well, we are representing here governments in different roles, but definitely I can tell about ourselves. So, like Mr. Bódis and myself, we are from the Hungarian government or government-owned companies. That we think a lot about how to do things better, and we definitely want to do things that are not just good according to our views, but that are really useful and accepted by our stakeholders. So we are not in ourselves. So we don't think that this is an ego trip, that we have to show that we are doing a lot of things, but we want to do things that are good for the ecosystem, that are good for the economy, and this is why we are here sitting from different countries, because we believe that we can learn a lot from each other. Now, after this introduction, I would like to go into a first round, which is please tell one policy instrument from the last 4 or 5 years that you believe that was really really useful. I'm saying 4 or 5 years because very often new ideas didn't have enough time to prove themselves. So I would rather try to hear, or the audience, that are already proven as something good. And when I'm talking about countries, okay, here we are representative of EIT, which is obviously not a country representing an EU organization, but you have an overview of all the member states. So we would like to hear your views as an entity in itself, and also an entity within the EU that has connection with all the member states. Okay, so this is my first question. I don't know, where do we start? Okay.
Okay. So good afternoon, everyone. Indeed, I'm representing here European Institute of Innovation and Technology, EIT short. And so you mentioned 4 or 5 years, and in the previous panel, I heard the importance of long-term thinking. So I would rather look back to the last 14, 15 years of EIT, and rather than mentioning one specific flagship or one specific program, what I would like to highlight is that in this last 14, 15 years, we have been working at the EIT to prove a point that it's possible to build, establish and build financially sustainable innovation ecosystems at the European level. And I'm happy to say that we're there because our first knowledge and innovation communities, which are public-private partnerships at the European level, were set up 15 years ago, and they are now financially sustainable. So in a way, it's possible to have the best of both worlds, or marry purpose and profit, to build something that's financially successful, but also delivers societal impact for Europe as a whole. So these first 3 innovation communities, some of you may be familiar with them, EIT InnoEnergy, EIT Climate Kick, and EIT Digital, have been around for 15 years, and they are no longer dependent on EU funding or EIT funding or public funding at all, because they have reached a success that enables them to stand on their own 2 feet and continue to deliver innovation. So in this context, I think it links to previous panel discussions about the importance of societal impact of innovation, but also the innovative ways of financing innovations, so that's something that we have proven that is possible to do. And this is what I would start with, and then we can dig deeper in the discussion. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah.
Shall I get going? All right. So from the point of view of the Austrian Research Funding Agency, covering applied science and innovation, it's hard to answer your question because there is not the one and the only kind of instruments, right? We have been building over the last, I guess, 15, 20 years, a very diversified innovation ecosystem with a lot of different instruments, some of them supporting bottom-up programs where companies can apply to get support and manage the financial risk of innovating their products and services. We have a set of strategic thematic programs that are kind of defined top-down by the ministry, setting strategic targets and ambitions in the mobility, energy, production, you name it, areas that allow a sector and a strong community to grow and advance and be competitive. And the successes, I guess we also see in the performance also on European level, because in these sectors where we have strong thematic programs, we also have a quite high footprint on the European level and have quite a high return and success rate in our performance. What we see, perhaps if we come back to the last few years, what has changed here is that we are embarking more and more, not only in the technological perspective on offering funding for companies or for cooperative projects between universities and companies, but to look into transformative aspects, call it challenge-driven or mission-oriented approaches. And they are kind of the new kid on the block, also in Austria, where we have started with the program on impact innovation, something that addresses more social innovation. We talked about that, or some of you talked about that this afternoon, where we try to create environments to implement missions in Austria, complementing what we see on European level, and also supporting a quite broader transformation, which requires new kinds of projects, new kinds of actors. It's not only about cooperation between science and business, but this entails bringing local initiatives, cities, other actors, patient associations, hospitals, you name it, on board to really have the impact then in transforming society and industries. So there is a development into new mechanisms, new instruments according to the new needs that we see, but I guess the success is in this comprehensive, diversified portfolio that meets very different needs.
And do you have one specific instrument that you feel that this was really something over expectations from all the KPIs that you are looking for? So I'm not, I don't suggest that in one specific way, but something that you would recommend others to implement, for example.
I think what reflecting in one of the panels where we talked about fundamental and do we need fundamental research and who should be the driving force in defining topics or not. Something that I think was influential to the development of this ecosystem was the introduction, and this goes back 20 plus years in Austria, the thematic programs that there was a dedicated program that requested the cooperation of science and business, that started the development of really communities of universities, research organizations, different companies, SMEs, industry, in thematic areas, in the energy sector, in the mobility sector. And they advanced. They started with rather traditional innovation in the automotive sector. This went then on with looking into electric mobility. This goes back to automotive driving. So this whole sector, the developments that we see all over the place in the automotive sector, this was accompanied by a thematic program. The same in industry, in energy, where we started with passive houses, and then it was now it's about positive energy districts and climate neutral cities, right? This started small scale with very strong technological focus, and this advanced to very systemic approaches, transformative character, but always with intention to bring the key stakeholders together and request support cooperation between science, industry, SMEs, any other kind of actor that you need to transform. And I think that allowed to mature communities and this ecosystem that are then able to scale it up, be active on the European level as well. So I think that was a long way to go, but I think it turned out quite well.
Thank you. Ivo.
Okay, so from the perspective of Czechia, our agency, Czech Invest, was established 32 years ago, and our main goal was, after the Velvet Revolution, to kind of, focus and start the economy. And most of the people at that time didn't know, like, I was born that year, by the way. Most of the people that time didn't know, how to manipulate themselves in the global capitalism, how to be competitive. We had a lot of strategies and so on, but it was necessary to attract some foreign direct investments, and it was our main goal. But in that time, we kind of became a victim, or nowadays, we kind of became a victim of our own success, because we are the most industrialized country in Europe per capita, per generation, with Slovakia. It's like the same amount. So any type of manufacturing imaginable is done in Czechia nowadays, but most of this manufacturing is being done by foreign corporations. So it's very competitive, but there's a lot of foreign dividends going back, and our investors have invested, so they deserve to take this money back. But nowadays we face this middle-level European economy problem, that you need to refocus, and maybe you need to grow your own talent, your own corporations that will be able to invest outside, and we have examples like that. So this is why our agency Czech Invest actually had established in in around year like 2011 a new column, and that's my division of startups and venture capital. And we tested multiple approaches about how to promote this entrepreneurial skill, and it's also connected with technologies and innovation and so on. And what we find out is that, first of all, from the perspective of state, you should not really define what kind of innovation do you want, or what kind of like sector do you want to invest, because in this early stage, it's very hard to decide like what is the next boom gonna be. Like a few years ago, there was still an AI winter, so nobody would be able to predict this kind of growth in the sector, but you can have promising startups there. So basically what we came up with about 3 years ago, we started a program called Technology Incubation, because, and I think this could be a case not only in like CEE region, is the similar throughout Europe, there is not many technology-savvy angel investors for the pre-seed stages of the companies. So that's where we are trying to get our support, not only mentoring, but also the direct money to further develop the product. And currently we are incubating and giving support to more than 150 startups at one point. And this is going to continue. And the second instrument that we have is that also we tell ourselves in Czechia that we are a small country, only 10 million people, but in the European context, it's not such a small market. And also we understand each other with Slovaks quite well, so that's 15 million, 16 million people. So there is a trap in that, because if you are from Estonia or somewhere else, you only have like couple of million people speaking your language on a small market, but Czech startups can quite grow and stay in their market because it's middle size, but they actually go abroad a bit later. So we have incentive for that, to do it, to join an accelerator, but also with this one specific thing in mind, that we are not, as the government agency, deciding for them what incubation program they should choose and so on. They should convince us that it's the right choice. And by us, I mean we have the jury from the private sector and also from the research sector, and they are deciding, oh yeah, this makes sense. They know what they're talking, and also, and it's something not very commonly seen in the like government grants. We do this like directly, so there is no like stone wall. So you face with your juries, which is something kind of unknown in the government grant. But nowadays, especially with ChatGPT and other tools, like anybody can write a good business plan. Anybody can like pretend that they have a great export plan to the Silicon Valley. But if you face people who actually know what they're talking about, and they give you the tough questions and you can reply, that's the really seal of approval that we seek for.
Thank you.
We already discussed that it's not easy to measure different initiatives and different programs to each other. And the other thing that we also discussed today, that it's not even easy to measure the different programs' impact and outcomes. And that's why I will say the program, I think, was the most successful in the last couple of years in Hungary is not my personal opinion, but the opinion of the ecosystem players, because we talk a lot with the ecosystem players. We organized in the beginning of this year a startup forum, which brings together the different stakeholders in the startup ecosystem. And through these discussions, there is one program, I would say, that is repeatedly appears, we already discussed it in the last panel discussion. It's the Startup Factory program, which is an incubator support program. So we don't, as a government, don't support directly the startup companies. We support the incubator companies with private money, supported by private money as well, and they support startups. And we just launched, I think, the 4th round of this program in 2023 last year. And according to the opinion of the ecosystem players, this was, I would say, the most successful and most market-friendly initiative from the Hungarian innovation policy.
Well, thank you. And Yeah, it's interesting that there are similarities, and yeah, there are a lot of similarities between Czechia and Hungary. We are also maybe not in the top 2, but in the top 3 industrialized country. Very much the same model as you are and you have been doing. Anyhow, there was a lot of talk about the role of universities, the role of research in innovation. Today and all the time. Now, there are a lot of programs in Hungary. We have been doing, like you mentioned, that 5-6 years is not a long term. It's really not. So, but we have started doing programs in Hungary like 10-15 years ago, and still we don't feel that we are there. We don't feel that that this university-based innovation is fulfilling the role that actually everyone attributes to it, and in some countries it is really the case. Now, I would like to hear your views about how you can make that more successful, which implies that we are not that happy what happened until now.
Yeah, so basically in Hungary, it's the case what Laszlo mentioned, that obviously we're talking about technology transfer in universities and creating university-based innovation ecosystem in Hungary, and that's what we do for years now, but we're not there yet. That's we have to admit. And I think that's because it's, from one side, it's a cultural change. 10 years ago, I would say the third mission of the universities, basically next or besides research and education, the third mission, which is innovation, basically, and impact impact on the society, was not in the focus of the Hungarian universities. Now it's getting better and better. I showed you the numbers in the morning that now we have 60 patents a year. 4 years ago it was 10. Obviously, it's an increase, it's a development, but we still don't see that many deep tech companies spinning out of our universities that we would like to see. That's why we started a new initiative end of last year, so basically a year ago, with 5 universities as a pilot program. We call it Technology Transfer Company Program, because in Hungary, traditionally, the technology transfer offices were incorporated into the organization of a university, so it was a department, basically. And what we saw in the international best practices, looking at Israeli, Singaporean, Korean examples, even in the UK and US, we saw that these companies that are focusing on the technology transfer in a university is a 100% owned company of the university, and it's not incorporated as a department because it just don't have that many strengths if it's inside the university when it's outside, and its only KPI is to bring in industrial players and get technology transfer spinning out to the economy. Obviously, we haven't started it for a year, so we'll see see what's going to happen and see the results. But parallelly with this afternoon session, we held an event in the other room with these TTC companies, and I think we're on a good track. We'll see what happens in the coming months and years.
So I would say from our experience is quite similar, but I would say we are 2-3 years ahead, so we have some preliminary results. What actually proven to be quite successful in this like motivation and mind change was that we actually took part of the research money and put it into this technology incubation program and made it available not for research institutions, but we said like any type of innovative pre-seed stage startup can apply. And we started to measure like how many of them have like some direct contact with the university, either through licensing or through spin-off. And but it was still like we applied the same similar criteria as if we would give out the research money. So the researchers, they know the language, but also they are in the competitive stage with the like normal startups, technology startups. And it's very interesting, just the thing that we actually put into the jury 2 people from the VCs and 2 people from the universities, and they have these discussions and they share how they look at the technology completely differently. Out of these discussions, out of these juries, and we have like hundreds of startups going through this process, it generates a lot of connections because the Czech VCs, there's few dozens of them, they don't encounter the top scientists because they don't have anything in common. But in there, they are interested in the in technologies and so on. There are some other incentives from European Commission, and then they have a chance to sit there, change their views, maybe see the startup, exchange their patterns. And this actually, over the last 3 years, created a lot of interesting stories. So that's a good example, but in the end, if you take a look on the university professors and students and so on, if you give them more money to do the things they want to do, they will do it. But for example, we started to give some few years ago, started to measure the number of patterns on the universities, and it had an impact on the finance of the university. So it elevated. But then we found out that not all of these patterns are worth anything, so we were basically like losing the taxpayers' money for nothing. So the focus should be on the strategy, how to make revenue. That's the only measure that you can have. The only question is, as for the VC, what is the runway? How long are you going to finance it? But that should be the only measure that you should take.
In the Austrian case, the technology transfer offices are still embedded in the universities, so they are not necessarily an organization on their own. But there was, some of the universities have quite, in particular the technical universities, quite a strong focus then on startups or spin-offs. And this is coming along quite nicely. So some really nourish and nudge researchers and different teams to take advantage of exploiting their results. I guess that this cooperation that I mentioned before, the necessity to get some part of funding requires cooperation between universities and companies, has also an impact in that regard, right? There is an understanding. It took quite a couple of years that there is a common language and understanding how to cooperate on the longer term, what a company needs, what the university can apply, the different timelines, the different kinds of approaches that there might be. But there is I guess by now a very good understanding of what these kind of cooperations mean, and this of course strengthened the exploitation of results coming also from universities. And on top of that, we do have an instrument that's called competence centers, which is a long-term, more institutionalized cooperation between universities and companies. So this is a 7 to 10 years funding, depending on the competence center model that you choose. So for 10 years, this is institutionalized. There is a legal frame for a set of universities and companies to work together and to really join forces on a day-to-day basis. The companies are requested to provide in-cash, in-kind support. So this is not only a project-based cooperation, but this is a long-term collaboration that is established. And some of them get renewed, so this is then for about 20 years, having a set in automotive or wood or healthcare systems where this cooperation is established. And this, of course, has a strong impact on other kinds of supporting projects and this transfer that is happening on a day-by-day basis. And this really got a new twist, this kind of cooperation and joint understanding.
Okay, very interesting, thank you. So maybe before talking about the instrument, I would start with a story, actually, success story, one of the EIT's largest ones, and it comes from Estonia, from Tartu University. And the company's name is Keleten Technologies. So they actually produce ultracapacitors. These are practically batteries, but with a new type of technology. And the specialty of these batteries is the very high energy density that they have in it. And they can discharge energy within seconds, and it can be also recharged within seconds and millions of times over the lifetime. So how did this came about? So the whole story started 10, 11 years ago at Tartu University with two researchers who were playing with a new type of technology called curved graphene. I don't have the technical know-how to explain that, they're probably not interesting either. And they had some initial success in lab environment with this new technology. But then they were stuck at one point. Okay, so how to go on, how to build successful product out of it. And university was not able to help, although this is Estonia, which is, I think, let's say in the CE region, one of the most developed countries when it comes to innovation potential. And that's where they met EIT InnoEnergy, so one of our knowledge and innovation communities. And as Margaret said, I think most important is to bring the right people, the right organizations around the table. And this KIC, EIT InnoEnergy, could help them at that point to bring them in contact with first customers, to help secure that first offtake agreement, first customer, which then enabled them actually to develop further the product and build the first factory in Estonia on a small scale. Then they link them to the European Space Agency, because it turns out that these very small but very high energy density batteries are excellent in satellites where you don't have a lot of space. You also have to minimize the weight, and so on and so forth. And then finally, the company went on to build a factory in Germany. I think also very rare that a company from Eastern Europe opens a factory in Western Europe. So then at one point we started to think, how could we have more of that actually, and how could we help more researchers and to actually spin out such companies? And then 3 years ago, we launched the EIT's Higher Education Initiative, which is now in its fourth round. The fourth call for proposal is just open. We have already helped more than 100 universities. So the idea here is to match universities which would like to improve their innovation capacity, technology transfer capacities. So we match them with our knowledge and innovation communities, but also other partners, and then they can learn these best practices. And these universities are expected to come up with a so-called innovation vision action plan. So they have to have very clear ideas at the start of the project where they want to get, and then we help them get there. So if there's any universities from Hungary or other countries who haven't yet benefited from this program, please do so. The latest call is just open. We give funding, but not just funding. It's much more important that we connect them with the right players.
Thank you. And okay, now I finish with this going from one end to the other. So now for the next question, anyone who feels like to answer first, I would be happy with that. Now, there is a lot of talk now about the Draghi report, and one of the key barriers of innovation, what was identified in this report, was that there is insufficient focus on breakthrough innovation. That was the wording, and probably everyone agrees with that. But then comes a problem, especially from state actors, that how do you reconcile the different approaches to financing, let's say, innovation or R&D, because obviously there is notion that okay, we are spending public money, so we have to be very cautious. We have to spend public money in the right and prudent and cautious way. On the other hand, breakthrough innovations are breakthrough because you don't know what actually will come out of that. So, if you have any experience or any idea about the governmental funding of breakthrough innovation. Okay, there are VCs, so you can say, okay, government shouldn't take care of breakthrough innovation. I don't feel like that, so I wouldn't agree with that. But how would you do that? So anyone who would like first to answer, it's welcome.
All right, then I give it a start. Okay, yeah, that's quite a yeah. It goes back to this ecosystem that is created, right? What are we talking about? We see in the whole of Europe quite a lot of research results, interesting ideas. So the output in terms of research and potential breakthrough innovations is there, right? What we are lagging is the shift to really creating the innovation, getting the business out of it, scaling it in Europe. And there are different issues connected to that. This is we are highly fragmented in Europe, right? We have 27 legal conditions, tax regulations. So if you want to enter the market, you need to enter 27 markets, not in the US where you enter one market for about the same size of people. And that goes along with who is then investing, right? Dragging private investors into these markets is challenging. And I think it's matching those different issues. So the ideas are there. What we might need to get better or become better at is exploiting these ideas and the potentials. Many of our European, looking at the ERC, the European Research Council, the solid results that are created, many of them are exploited in the US. Right? So we are investing in Europe public money in research and innovation, and the US is benefiting from that in terms of market exploitation and revenues. And I think we need to find a way to deal with that situation. So the market union that is called for, I think, is certainly one issue to look into. From the Austrian perspective, we are heavily working on connecting to private investors to overcome this kind of bottleneck. Yeah, there are solid ideas. There's a lot of results potential available, but we need to train academics to embark on these entrepreneurships, right? To let them understand the potential of going on with their idea, taking use of EITs and national programs and whatever there is available, but then connecting that to private investors. And I think that's something that we try to strengthen in Austria gradually, one by one, to match the national programs that there are with private investors, also towards then European programs like the European Innovation Council, to exploit then Austrian technologies, potential SMEs or startups to take advantage of this scaling up on the European level.
So what you are saying is that the government shouldn't go for risky projects.
It always goes for risky projects because any euro that is invested in a research project is risky, right? The question is it the one that should scale it up then, right? Or who should invest? How do you bridge and combine the funds in whatever kind of way to incentivize research and innovation, creating the ideas, initiating, nudging the startups to some extent, but I'm not sure if we are ready to scale that up without any private investors in matching these. So I guess there are many models how you can do that, but I don't think it's only the public investment that needs to go into that.
Maybe I would like to reply to that as well. So I think the government or the EU should absolutely invest into risky projects, but I would turn it around a bit. We talk a lot, at least in the EIT, about de-risking of projects. And I think this is what we do at the EIT, de-risking projects for private investors to come in. Because you mentioned yourself now that innovation is inherently risky because you don't know, whether it will succeed. 90% of startups fail and all that. We all know the statistics. So innovation is risky in itself. Then the type of innovation we are in, which is the collaborative innovation, is even riskier if you think about it, because you also have to work with someone else that you don't know potentially from another country or with another organization. So there is this double risk, and this is where EIT at the European level, but obviously there's many national instruments and initiatives. We have to come in to de-risk. One way of it is, of course, give some seed funding, and this can crowd in private investment, it has been said before, but also by creating those frameworks within which these companies, universities, research centers can operate and can work together. A trusted environment in a way where you have already, let's say, established IP frameworks so that you know that you will not be ripped off, by your collaborators. I think that's equally important if we want to enhance collaboration and collaborative innovation in Europe.
Maybe regarding the Draghi report, right? So what I read, I didn't read the whole 300 plus pages, but what I think it really resonated with the situation of, let's say, Visegrad region, I would say, is that we kind of are used over the last decade or so on cohesion, that some kind of this like lesser developed regions should get money to catch up. And in some cases, in a lot of cases, they did not. And I think what you can read there is that competitiveness is not really done by cohesion. You don't support everybody in order to get them on some like leveled field. What we failed to realize, or what these programs didn't acknowledge, is that even our capital cities that have most of the capital, most of the human potential knowledge, they're small. Prague is small. In Europe, on the world scale, it's basically non-existent. Same goes to Budapest, same goes to Vienna, same goes to other European cities. There may be 2-3 cities that actually are shown, on this like world statistics, where there is a like world-class research, world-class business being done, any like stock exchange worth looking at from the outside perspective. So if you, for example, say that in your government program you will only support those regions that do poorly, then you don't do necessarily good service even to these regions. Because if you would have at least one Skype, at least one Prezi, or maybe tens of them, then these regions would actually be able to get some knowledge from there, and there's a spill out effect. And Draghi report actually like shows this, that we should focus more on the poles of growth, less on the cohesion. And same goes with the research. We are masters in Czechia. I don't know about your countries, but I suspect that we still have this like Austrian bureaucratic minds, that we should make a strategy. And in this strategy, we stress these like important points. I see similar. So we made a new strategy that has like 60 research priorities. I mean, it's not priority if it's in the like this list of everything that could be done, So I think the priority should be like one priority, maybe two, for middle-sized European economy. There's decent number of priorities, maybe 3, not more. And so, but it's hard because you need to go to some scientist who spent all his life doing something and say, maybe there is other country where they can utilize you more, because we need to put less eggs in our baskets. We cannot do everything in here. There's only like certain amount of capacity, and we need to focus to those that we believe, based on data, that are most profitable, most interesting, and so on. Maybe after a few years, you will manage to convince us when we do the next policy, the next strategy, that this is the right thing to invest and to focus on. But sorry, and this is something that is very, very hard for any type of politician. And also, there's another different interesting aspect that Czech Republic, compared to Hungary, but also Austria, has smaller capital city. Our capital city only forms like 10% of the population. In here, it's like 30%, I think, more or less, the same in Austria. And because of that, most of these like small regional capitals, we have 14 regions, most of them have their own universities, or at least some research institutions, and they all have their say in the politics and strategies and so on. So they want to focus their strategies. So it's even harder sometimes, but you can have like interesting cooperations, and so. But it's sometimes hard to focus the attention of only 10 million people, but 40 regions and 30 plus research institutions and universities on some priorities, and not 60, but maybe 3,
Well, yeah, I fully agree with the focusing, but I'm not sure who would win the competition regarding the number of universities. We have something like 60, so in Hungary, and to say a word for the defense of Austria, I think this is, first of all, it's the Austro-Hungarian Empire, so we take our share as well in that. But on the other hand, yeah, it was a well-working bureaucracy, but actually, Austro-Hungarian Empire, and especially by the Czech regions, were I think we're higher on the European list than now. So it was not that bad. Anyhow, this is a different conversation. So yeah.
So basically, and getting back to the Draghi report, you mentioned it has a very, I think, important and significant statement that the European VC market is just underdeveloped compared to the US or even Chinese VC market, and that's where I personally see the difference. And the answer to your question is that if a European startup, deep tech startup, we're speaking of deep tech startups, basically because these are the ones that can have huge technological breakthroughs and impact. So basically, if they got a Series B or Series C funding in the US and they can't find it in Europe, it's obvious they will flip to the US or even, I think, in the coming years or decades, flip to Southeast Asia, but don't stay in Europe. So I think personally that it's not the projects that we lack, because we have good research in each of the European countries. We have good minds, good talents. What we lack is basically the financing, and if we can create and develop the VC ecosystem in the European Union, that could help this one as well.
Yeah.
Just a quick note, but that's the thing. Like, it's not only about the VC market or the number of tickets, but if you take a look onto the report, it also raises very, very important questions, like why each of the countries should have their own telecommunication company, why each of these of the membership country should have like electricity company and so on, telecommunications and these, because if there would be one company, or there would be common market with these like strategically important commodities, then even the startups, they would get bigger faster because they would have clients here, they wouldn't be forced to move outside, and like European Union created a common market, but it left some like very, very big blind spots because it wanted at the time, Italy was bigger economy than China when the common market emerged, so it didn't seem like a big problem. Nowadays that's like very, very hard thing to imagine, but at that time the competitiveness on the European level meant on the like world level. Nowadays it's a different world, and but it's hard for the politicians and for the governments, to kind of face this new reality and tell it to their businesses that we are lifting these restrictions that kind of protected you, and it's a new world.
By the way, you mentioned politicians, and there is a topic that we quite often talk between each other. How can you achieve a situation where governments after an election don't feel that they have to reinvent the wheel and start something new in policy, and then there is no stability? I often tell my colleagues that this question, and they know it already by heart, what is the death of a good idea, an even better idea? And if you continue that, then you never do anything, because you have always a better idea. So if someone has any solution for that, or some good practice, how is that done?
I mean, it's not a case of Hungary for last 10 years, right? Or, maybe. But just in our experience from Czechia, the fundamentals are the same. The country wants to be more respected. They want to see some results for the money they invest, the public spending and so on. Sometimes the names of the program needs to be changed because they are very politicized. But in general, the drive for competitiveness, drive for more focused education, applied research, and maybe also this pulse of growth is kind of a universal. Maybe there is a difference, 10%, but in the end, it's always the same.
Yeah, I agree to that view. What we see in Austria is that we have if you establish longer-term programs that go for, let's say, 5 years, right, and they don't match the election cycles, they go beyond and across these, they connect different election cycles, and that helps, of course, to carry on with different thematic developments with a common understanding that the innovative capacity of the country needs to increase, that we need to deliver on the research results into the market, that we need to support the transformation that there is. So there is, over the last decades, more or less, even with changing setups of the coalitions and of governments, there was an understanding that this needs to carry on. And the programs that we see are developing content-wise. Topics might change and adapt to whatever priorities a government might have. But overall, these longer-term perspectives allow to and create a stability to implement a program for 5 years period. And this really creates a community where you also have industry that has a strong say, and they call, of course, for their priorities. That it helps to create that stability.
Okay, just very quickly, I'm mindful of the time. So because this question is very, very pertinent and timely at the European level. I mean, we're just after the EP elections and waiting on the new College of Commissioners to take office. And obviously, every time there's a new commissioner, they have new ideas, they want to build their own legacy and so on and so forth. And then also we have the 7-year planning of the EU. So every 7 years we have a new framework program and obviously new ideas, new instruments and so on. And this is probably not the best way. We've heard from the Israeli expert that for them the biggest advantage is that it stays fixed. This is what he said. So for decades that program is the same. So this would be a plea maybe to also member states in the Council to look at what is there already and what works and build on them rather than creating new things from scratch. Thank you.
Thank you. We are at minus 23 seconds, but I would like to ask just one very quick question, 3 numbers from everyone. We had this discussion about fundamental research and applied research. Now, I would like to ask you, like for 3 numbers, how would you split 100 fundamental research, applied research, and experimental development? 3 numbers. So fundamental, applied, experimental.
State-owned funding or state funding?
State funding, yeah.
You have to be precise with the numbers to add up to 100, but okay. I would say 45, 30, 25.
That actually seems like a reasonable reasonable numbers. I'm hopefully that's not my decision. I don't represent the technology agency of Czech Republic, so any numbers go.
I can't give a number on that either. And I think I'm not sure if that really matters, if there is a percentage more into basic or more into innovation. And what we see is in this transformative setup that is coming up more and more, it's about the combination of that. And there might be a fundamental research that directly goes into innovation. And there is something where you build upon very strong and then fight for years on applied research to get something into an innovation, and you don't get it across, right? So you need all of that, and you need a solid framework that allows to build on these various parts, so that you have, with basic science, you create the capacity of your community to be innovative in the first place, and then you need to set the scene right to advance that into implementation of some sort. So I don't think it's about the numbers.
I agree.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Just one comment. If you are in a decision situation, then you have to make such decisions. So you may say, okay, this is not like that, but at the end of the day, you have to define a budget. So it's not that easy. But anyhow, thank you very much for your contribution, and I think we had a vivid discussion, and obviously there are many other important topics, but I hope that you have the feeling, and the audience has the feeling, that we have touched upon the most important issues regarding the role of government and governmental policies in innovation. So thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody, for this insightful panel discussion. Another round of applause for every single personnel who have been on stage for any of the panel discussions.